good afternoon. During camp, it's been a challenge to find a quiet moment between the things going on at camp and at Chabad and running around a lot. But it's always nice to be able to find a peaceful moment and share a word of Torah. We're in the 9 days now, which was preceded by the 3 weeks and culminates with Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the Jewish calendar, which is going to be actually Shabbos. But since Shabbos is a day of joy, we're not going to mourn on Shabbat. We're going to celebrate on Shabbat and drink wine and eat meat and only commemorate the saddest day of Tisha B'Av on Saturday night into Sunday. But the time that we're in is called Bein HaMitzarim, which means the time of constraints. And the reason is, of course, because it was in these 3 weeks when first the Babylonians and then the Romans besieged the holy city of Jerusalem, and the Jews were trapped until the temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av on the 9th of Av. But the word Bein HaMitzarim, constraints, also has a very important message to us. And that's what I want to share with you today and connected to Tisha B'Av. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, says that the word tzara, which means a crisis, the word tzara, which means a crisis, is also the same word as tzohar, which means a window. And what the Baal Shem Tov is telling us is that every crisis is actually a window of opportunity to be able, sometimes you try to run away from the pain, from the crisis, but that pain is your way, and through that pain and through that crisis, through that tzara, you get a tzohar, you get a window opening to allow you, to catapult you to a greater and higher destination. In fact, for those of you who were in shul on Friday morning was Rosh Chodesh, and we said one of the most beautiful verses of Psalm, which we also say right before we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and it goes, Min ha-meitzar karatika, from the constraints, from the meitzar, the same word as Bein HaMitzarim, from the constraints, I call you, God. Anani, answer me. V'amer chaviyaka, with expansion, with hope, with good things. And the rabbis tell us, and the Baal Shem Tov expounds on this, that min ha-meitzar, from the constraints, from the crisis, that's where we get the courage and the strength to call out to God. And that's where He responds with expansiveness. So really, every crisis, every Bein HaMitzarim is really a time of hope, a time of rejuvenation, a time to be able to have the strength to learn from our pain, to grow to greater heights. Rabbi Soloveitchik says something very fascinating. Every morning, when we wake up in the morning, we say the prayers in the morning. They're very beautiful. I'm not sure if you ever pay attention. But we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, thank you, God, Pokeach Ivrim, who opens the eyes of the blind. Matir Asurim, who unbounds those who are in shackles. So Kev Kifufim, who raises those who are hunchback. Malbish Arurim, God, who clothes those who are naked. Every time in each of these blessings, first we say the thing that God does in the positive, He clothes, and then we say the negative, those who are naked. Or we say He opens the eyes, and then we say those who are blind. Except in one place, we say Baruch Atah Hashem Hanasen LaYa'ev Koach, who gives the tired person strength. Why don't we first say Hanoten Koach LaYa'ev, who gives strength to the tired person? Says Rabbi Soloveitchik something so fascinating. Because when a person is tired and God gives them strength, even after they have strength, they're going to get tired again. It's a constant life struggle. Every time you do something, every time you accomplish something, you're still going to be tired. And therefore he says, Hanosen LaYa'ev Koach. God gives the one who's tired and might be continuously tired. Because you know why? Because he's accomplishing. Because he's doing things. And God gives him koach. God gives him strength. If you don't want to be tired, if you're going to take a hike, if you're going to climb Mount Everest, if you're going to run a bike or run a 2-mile run, you're going to be tired. If you don't want to be tired, you got to sell your bicycle, buy a TV and a bag of potato chips, and sit down and watch TV and watch other people live, watch other people overcome challenges and grow to greater heights. But that's why Rabbi Soloveitchik says that Hanosen LaYa'ev Koach, God gives to the one who is tired, He gives him strength. He's going to be tired again because he's going to accomplish more. But He's going to give him the strength and the vitality he needs to accomplish. And that's really the message. They say this story about this guy He comes home one day and he's sitting with his wife and he says, he sits down at the TV, he's watching TV, he's drinking a beer, he's eating chips, and he turns to his wife and he says, if the day ever comes and I'm a vegetable in the hospital and there's no hope for me, just pull the plug on me. And his wife looks at him. He says, I don't want to live that way. And his wife looks at him. She walks over to the TV and she pulls the plug out. Because sometimes you could be a vegetable sitting at the TV. There's no pain. There's no growth. And that's the message of Bein HaMetzarim, this time of constraints. Because as we say in Tehillim, and right before we blow the shofar Rosh Hashanah, Mina Meitzar Karasika, from the constraints, from the struggles, from the challenges, God gives us expansiveness. He gives us hope. He lets us know that this is our way to grow. And it's interesting, because I don't know if you know, but Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, is when the temples were burned. But the rabbis tell us that the temples actually burned on the 10th of Av, not on the 9th of Av. So the question is, why do we commemorate the beginning when it started burning, even though mainly it burned on the 10th of Av? It only burned a little bit on the 9th of Av. Shouldn't we commemorate this sad day on the 10th of Av? And the rabbis answer us, no, because that's when it started. Rabbi Soloveitchik explains and expounds on this, and he says like this, you see, the Pirchei Kahuna, which were the young Kohanim, the youthful priests who were the future of the Jewish people, when they saw the temple go up in flames on the 9th of Av, they took their keys to the temple out of their pocket, and they looked up to heaven, and they said, God, if you don't want us to have this temple, if you don't want us to be able to serve you, here, we're going to give you the keys back. And symbolically, they took their keys and they threw it up to heaven. Says Rabbi Soloveitchik, that's what we mourn. We mourn when there was no more hope left, when they gave up, when there was a crisis that was so bad. The temple was burning and they saw no way out. They saw no way that from this tzara, from this crisis, should be a tzohar, should be a window of opportunity. My friends, we all have crises in life, but never lose your hope. Never lose that opportunity to be able to grow. When Sir Edmund Hillary, the first New Zealand man, the first man to ever climb Mount Everest, when he tried his first time and he failed, and afterwards he was giving a talk somewhere, and there was thousands of people in the room, and they all stood up to climb at him, and he writes later in his autobiography, he says that I felt like a loser. I felt like a failure. They all were cheering me that I tried to climb Mount Everest, which he did a year later, but I felt like a loser. And I felt such a big failure for not accomplishing it. And I took the mic and I walked to the side of the stage. And I looked, there was a big mural of Mount Everest there, and I pointed at the mural and I said, listen, Mount Everest, you beat me this time, but I will beat you next time. You know why, he said? Because you, Mount Everest, stopped growing, and I have not stopped growing. That's the message of this time. We never stop growing. From every crisis, from every challenge, the Jewish people have become stronger, have had more courage to persevere, but not just to persevere.